Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Horrorheads podcast. I am Rich Mallery. I'm here with my co-host, Jerry Lourenco.
What up? What up?
And this is episode 1 of a brand new podcast. And look, who knows how this is going to go? Could be a complete shit show. Could be amazing, but we're doing it. We're gonna fucking drink some bourbon, talk about horror movies, probably talk a lot of shit. And again, we'll see what happens. Some of the episodes we're gonna pick a couple of movies to talk about. Sometimes we're going to focus on a particular genre. Like we might do something about, I don't know, French horror films. We'll probably have some guests on at some point. But tonight we're gonna pick a couple movies and just kind of hang out and talk about them. You know, for those of you who don't know, Jerry and I used to run a horror website called Horrorheads, probably I don't know how long ago, 15, 20 years ago. And we did it for a couple of years and it was a lot of fun. And then it ended up just getting too big. And you know, we ended up having all of these writers working for us, and most of them really sucked and were a pain in the ass. And then it just got to be work, and we started out doing it as fun. But anyway, we thought we'd kind of bring it back and I don't know, start doing some stuff.
I mean, that's some good history right there. I mean, I didn't really know we were going to talk about movies. I thought we were just drinking bourbon, but that's cool too. You know, I'm really, I'll talk about a movie any day of the week. So that sounds good to me.
Yeah. So speaking about bourbon, it wouldn't be Horrorheads without some drinking, and we're going to do some of that tonight. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little pissed off at work today and I already had a drink, so I'm getting close to being lit. But anyway, what are you pouring tonight?
I mean, well, I'm not ready yet. Wait, hold on a second here. Oh, here we go.
Solo cup.
No. That's where my ice was. All right.
What do you got there?
Bardstown.
You're moving so fast, it's like a ghost that can't see the bottle.
Bardstown.
Oh, shit.
96 proof on a work day.
What is today? Today is Tuesday, the day before Valentine's Day, so perfect time to get lit. I am starting off with a little Angel's Envy, something I haven't had in a very long time. 86.6 proof. We'll see how it goes. I'm about to drop this shot and a half, actually. Cheers.
Cheers.
What are you tasting? Give me the review. Give me the 10-second review on that.
Man, 10-second review is that this is going to be very caramelly with a little chocolate topper there, and then a heavy burn right at the end. A lot of alcohol in this one, but I'd say by the third sip, you have just a nice, mellow, good sipping bourbon. How about you?
So I haven't had Angels in forever. And years ago, I did a blind taste test with, I don't know, I think I had 16 different bourbons. And this is the one I picked as the winner of that. And I don't know, it's interesting. It's more, I guess, rye forward than I thought. And that's what I'm getting personally.
Really?
It's definitely delicious. But yeah, I was expecting it's a little sharper than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot smoother for something that's a little more high end, but maybe I need to keep drinking and get more into it.
This the point in the podcast where we tell people we drink a lot of bourbon, or is that just assumed? No. I'm not quite sure that
we saved that for episode 20. When we get that
far. we have two interests, and they would be horror movies and drinking bourbon. So I'm actually sitting in my bourbon room right now. I got a pretty sick display. You guys can't see it, but it's probably about 20 bourbons on tap behind me.
20. Damn.
20.
Yeah, I'm sitting on about 3 different ones. I'm lighter weight than you. I drink them, then buy a new one.
Yeah, I hold on. I'm not gonna lie.
You're a collector.
I have an issue. Yeah, I have an issue finishing bottles. I don't know, but that could be for another episode.
It's gonna be funny when we have guests on and they're gonna have no choice. You got to drink with us, otherwise you're not coming on. We even talked about when we were trying to set up this podcast, doing some kind of drinking game, which I think we'll do at some point. I think we need to figure out what that ends up being, but there will be at some point a Horrorheads drinking game.
Yeah, that definitely sounds interesting. And I think if any guests do not want to drink bourbon with us, then they have to do a shot.
Okay. There's one shot to start it off, or
one shot to start it off there. They got to get, something, just get on the level and join us.
Yeah, no, there's got to be some kind of altered state of consciousness.
Yeah. Of their choice.
Drink alone.
It could be vodka, tequila, anything they like, but they have to do something.
Yeah, I think you and I though we're gonna stick with the bourbon because that's where we're from. That's what we do, right?
I mean, I may just stop, talking about movies and start talking about bourbon again halfway through this. So
I
who
know it's
knows?
funny. People like probably clicked onto this for the first time and they're like, okay, horror head's cool, and like literally we just
Mm,
spent 10 minutes talking about whiskey. But
like Googling, is there bourbon called horror? I don't get it.
you know what? Deal with it. It's our show. Fuck it. I don't care. So anyway, so like before we kind of get into, there's like a couple of things I want to talk about later. Like I want to talk about this movie Night Swim that we both watched. I want to
Mm,
talk about Thanksgiving and some Eli Roth films and stuff like that. But like, what have you like? Have you seen anything recently? Like, what have you been watching?
definitely. So I have Shudder. I watch a lot of Shudder films. I find myself kind of getting really into their original content. So recently I actually watched The Apology again for probably the third time. So essentially, whenever it's like raining out, whenever there's some snow on the ground, so I mean, the apology is like a super super slow burn where I mean you really don't know what's going on until about three quarters through the film. And really, what grabs me about this movie is one, the acting is phenomenal. It's an older cast, really an unknown cast. But really it's the atmosphere of the film. It just starts off on a dark and stormy night, which is always my favorite. But there's this massive, massive snowstorm, and it's like a thunder and lightning snowstorm, which is like so rare in movies, and it really kind of sets the tone for like what's going on. Essentially, the quick high level plot of this film would be a few days before the holidays, a woman is going through some struggles. You could tell that she probably quit drinking recently, so she probably won't be listening to this particular podcast. But she's thinking about having a drink and kind of throwing out her sobriety when there's a knock at the door, and it's a person she hasn't seen in a while. It's like her sister's ex-husband, and basically he comes in and he wants to just kind of like have a chat with her. He said he wants to surprise him for the holidays. But really, what we come to realize is that this woman's daughter has been missing for like the last 10 years, and they never found her. And they don't really know what happened to this woman. And every single year, she, tries to get on the news, tries to kind of like, get some momentum behind people still searching for her daughter, but they haven't had any luck. I don't know how far I should go. I don't know if I should do any spoilers, but basically, it's just these two people in this house, and he's going there to apologize for something. And it really gets to a pretty sick boiling point when you realize what the apology is about. So that's a quick overview of that. Should I go any further or no? You think I should just
I mean,
leave
does she
some?
ever have the drink? That's really what I want to know.
No, no. She uses a bottle of vodka as a weapon later on. So I mean,
At least she uses it, I
I
guess.
would,
Hopefully
yeah. I mean,
hopefully she survives and finally has that drink to celebrate. But
she actually said this, and I quote that it's an expensive bottle of vodka. So that really, so I'm really disappointed that no one actually
was it the
gets to
goose? What
enjoy
was she
it.
drinking?
Couldn't see.
Boo. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for everybody out there, like just as a warning, like we're gonna spoil some shit. Like we're gonna try not to spoil things, but it's gonna happen. So like, deal with it. Like
yeah.
especially once I start drinking, I just start talking and who knows
Yeah,
what.
maybe we'll just put in the description whatever we spoil. That way people kind of know like what they're getting into. So I didn't spoil the apology, but yeah, so I checked that out and I rewatched Knock Knock recently, which is that Eli Roth film since you and I have been talking about Eli Roth, and I want to rewatch some of his other stuff. We could talk about that later. It's an interesting film. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions on it. I do.
Yeah, I definitely do, and that's kind of what sparked. Whoa, there's my cat, by the way, just literally almost clawed
Wow.
my back of the neck and murdered me. But
So
that's
aggressive.
he just hates. I don't know what his problem is. So like I watched a couple of movies recently, just trying to like get back in horror. I've been like working on various things, so I haven't watched. I watched two movies, like older movies I just happened to find on Tubi that I just never caught for some reason. So the first one I was like I watched this movie, The Tall Man, and
Mm.
to be completely honest, I was looking for something. I wanted to watch something on Slender Man. For whatever reason, I had Slender Man in my head and I wanted to find a Slender Man movie. And I know there is one, but I couldn't find it and I wasn't gonna like pay to rent it. But So anyway, I found this movie, The Tall Man, which I can't believe I never saw before because Martyrs is like my all-time favorite horror film,
Yeah.
hands down. I love that film. Seen it 100 times. Like I just love that film. It's just amazing film. And this was the director's like follow-up to that film. So like I was expecting like,
What?
yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
know
That
that.
was
What?
his follow-up, his like first, I guess, American movie. And man, I was so disappointed in this movie. First of all, it's like
Oh,
forget like anything to do with Martyrs. Like it's not even like I don't even know if it was really a horror movie. It was more of like a mystery kind of thriller, which wasn't what I expected. But plot of the movie is like there's this really shitty like town of just trailer parks and stuff like that. And all these kids keep disappearing, and there's this like legend that the tall man is like taking these children away. And they cast Jessica Biel in the lead, and she couldn't have been like more boring in this movie. And I personally don't really, I personally don't find her attractive. I get why people do, but I know she's supposed to be beautiful. And I mean, I don't think she wore makeup the entire movie, so she's totally like dressed down, like not even really acting. It was a weird casting, but like as the movie gets to like the half hour or 40-minute point, like it completely takes a huge turn and a twist, which I wasn't expecting, which would have been fine, but like the movie just drags on and like you're just waiting for something to happen for it to all make sense. And it finally does make sense in the last minute of the movie. But literally, like you're just sitting there like, all right, let's get to this point. And yeah, it wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be this like supernatural movie. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's just a serial killer movie. And then it wasn't any of those things. And I don't know, I didn't enjoy it. And especially like I mean, there was really like I don't remember any blood or real violence in the movie. It's a dark fucking movie. Like it's heavy, but wasn't what I expected. I didn't enjoy it. I did like his follow-up. He did another movie, Incident in a Ghostland, which I liked. That was
oh
a
yeah,
really messed up
yeah.
movie. But this one was not good. And at least in my opinion, maybe people like it, but it felt like a lifetime kind of mystery thriller. I don't know. I didn't get it. And then I watched this other movie that I liked called The Odds, and I think I saw it on Tubi, and it's really low budget, like ridiculously low budget. Kind of like a psychological horror movie, and it basically is like there's a man and a woman in this room, and the woman needs to play this game, and apparently there are all these other rooms that have men and I'm assuming men and women, maybe it's men and men or women, who knows? But like there's all these other rooms of people playing the same game, and it's whoever taps out first. I'm sorry, whoever taps out last is the winner, and they have to increasingly do more fucked up things. Like she needs to put her foot in like a box and like have rats gnaw at it, and like she needs to survive that, and then but she doesn't know if people are tapping out or not. So the guy will just be like,
Oh,
"Oh, there's 4 people left. There's 3 people left." And really the whole movie is like a mind game between this woman and this guy as she like escalates into doing more and more fucked up shit. And again, it's really low budget. Like you don't see really a lot of things are like left to your imagination, but I kind of liked it for what it was. Literally 2 people in a room talking for a whole movie, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. It's different.
I mean, that sounds pretty good. And you actually watched a movie on Tubi, so that's fantastic. Because like finding a really good movie to watch on Tubi is like finding gold. So
Yeah, yeah,
you
totally.
probably spent 2 hours looking for it, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't even know why I
but
landed
you
on that
found it.
movie.
You found it.
I think I landed on it because I just was tired of looking for something. I'm like, whatever this is, like it's what I'm watching. I think it came out in like 2018, so it's a bit older. Tall Man was like 2012, so even more older. But you know what? You never know. But I like the odds. I thought it was different. Again, going into it thinking that like it's going to be kind of just 2 people in a room and that's it.
So would you rather watch something that you never saw before but didn't like it, or watch something you know you like for like the 100th time? What do you get more satisfaction out of?
I go back to the same things. It's hard for me now to pay attention to something new, especially just like the way like my and others' attention spans are going. If something doesn't grab me right away, it's really difficult to stick with it. So usually I'll try to find something new and I'll spend a good half hour, and then I always go back to like watching something I've seen for the thousandth time. Like I'm gonna watch the Friday the 13th remake probably like once a month, like and still love it every time. And whatever, you could hate on that movie all you want. I love that movie. We'll probably do a whole episode on that movie at some point. But yeah, it's tough to like try new stuff now, especially because there's so much like just horror, and it's difficult to give things a chance. What about you?
Totally agree. I mean, especially like newer films, 2022, 2023, 2024. It's like they just they don't grab you like the older horror films. Like you're 10 minutes in on a film and you're like, man, I love this. This is the best thing I've ever watched in my life. But it's like 10 minutes in on a newer movie. You don't even know what it's about yet. You're just like, what are we waiting for? It's like, don't save everything for the end. You know, you're really counting on people to kind of hold on. Me, I find that comfort in just kind of like repeating and watching like the same thing over and over again. And I get caught up in these phases where, you know, I'll watch the same film like 2 3 nights in a row and just feel like enjoy it the first time and the last time exactly the same. So yeah, if I like it, that's it. It's for a lifetime. I love it. You know, I never get bored, so I'll keep watching the same thing over and over again. But if I do find that one kind of like film that's like this really checks a lot of boxes, I give it another chance. I'll watch it again. Hopefully that becomes a part of the queue, you know?
Yeah, I do the same thing. And usually, like, unless I really hate something, like, I will usually give something a second watch at a later date. Like, if I'm just like, that was all right, just because, again, you go into a thing with expectations, and then once those are kind of eliminated, you can kind of like see it almost through different eyes. So I appreciate that. I think for me, like rewatching something is always preferred because it's just hard to stay mentally focused on something now. I'm always thinking I'm on my phone like after like when I watched Night Swim, it was hard to I had to put my phone in the other room because I was like
I told you to do that.
literally sit on my
You
phone
have
and
to.
miss half the
Yeah.
movie. And even
No.
this movie, which wasn't like a complicated movie, there were like things that I was like confused by, and then I was like, oh, I totally missed this thing they said 5 minutes into the movie because I wasn't paying attention. So anyway, let's talk about it then. Let's talk about Night Swim.
Yeah.
Again, I had very low expectations for this movie. It's PG-13 horror. I know by the time this podcast airs, it won't necessarily be new, but it's recent enough. Let's talk about it. So this movie is billed as a movie about a haunted swimming pool, which okay,
Wait, what is it about?
a haunted swimming pool. Which again, I've never seen a movie about a haunted.
Never see. It's
I don't
it's
think I
very
so
interesting.
I give them credit. I could picture the pitch meeting, right? Like they're thinking what probably had like a dartboard and was like all these different ideas that have never been done, and they're like, all right, I guess we're doing a haunted pool movie. So Night Swim is about this family that moves into a house like every other horror movie, and the man is a former baseball player who, and I must have missed this in the beginning, like I guess suffered some kind of neurological disorder, and now he can't play ball or do much of anything. So they move into this house that they can't afford, but it has a pool and they love the pool. And then, of course, like some weird supernatural stuff happens in the movie. So, right up the bat with this movie, I was super confused because there's this opening scene with a different family that's kind of creepy. This little girl, like, is getting some kind of object out of the pool for her sick brother. I'm choking on something.
Yeah, why don't you drink some bourbon?
Yeah, helps every time. And then I wasn't even sure what happened. Like there was, I guess, a ghost or something, and then she just disappeared, and I was completely confused. But I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna stick with this. It's gonna make sense at some point. I don't know. How'd you feel about this movie? Like, we'll go into some of the details, but like, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I got through it. I watched it. Thought the acting was excellent. Carrie Condon, who's the mother in the film, I think she really carried the movie on her back.
Yeah, I thought
Without
she was
her,
great. I thought the
yeah,
dad was one of the most boring characters. Like there was just nothing there. Even when he got like crazy, I was still like, this guy, I can't even watch this guy. He's so boring.
yeah, he was pretty bad. The kids were pretty good. So I mean, so I was okay with the acting, and what I really pay attention to now because it could drive me insane if I'm not feeling it is the dialogue in these newer films. So this is a fairly new film, and honestly, it could have some issues with like that text talk kind of Gen Y where people cutting each other off. Gen Z, the mixture. It's like everyone's kind of just talking over each other. That drives me insane. So as soon as I saw some young actors, I was concerned. I'm like, here we go, because it seemed kind of like it was going to be based around these teenage aged kids, but it really wasn't. So but overall I did like the acting. As far as like the plot and the scares, I mean, it didn't do it for me at all. And I do want to talk about that first opening scene that you're talking about, like with the pool there. I just don't know like what they did I don't know if it was like the timing of the scene, the acting of the scene, the music of the scene. I don't know what it was, but I think that first scare that was supposed to be a jump scare, it just it just fell apart. Like you already you could telegraph what was going to happen 5 minutes before it even happened. And I'm sorry, that's not scary. Like I felt like they kept like panning the camera over to like an empty area just to get you to start looking there. And you're like, yeah, let me guess. Is there gonna be a ghost there in a second? And of course there was. So when it happened for me, it really fell flat. And I just kind of feel like that set up the whole movie. It just made it a little predictable for me, honestly.
It's weird. It was predictable, but also like went in directions that again weren't making a ton of sense to me. And it's funny, like you said, the dialogue, and I wrote down a line that made me crack up, and it wasn't even supposed to be funny.
Let me hear it.
At some point, I think the dad gets like, I'm assuming he gets possessed or something like that, and like they're talking about like getting rid of the pool, and he goes, the pool is the greatest thing to ever happen to me. I was like, what are you talking about? You're insane. It was just funny. Like some of it was just super comical. And then there was like another scene. Oh, like in the end, he's like chasing his daughter around. And we're gonna
Yeah,
spoil this
yeah.
movie. He's chasing his daughter around and like starts like saying Marco Polo. And it's like, wait, is this supposed to be a comedy now? Like, because the whole movie like wasn't funny at all. So it made no sense to me. It was weird. So like the movie, like, okay, so I was kind of into it for a minute. Like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give this movie. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but like I'm intrigued until there was a certain point where the movie completely lost me. And it's the scene where the girl is playing Marco Polo with like her
Mm-hmm.
love interest. And all of a sudden you see this like ghost monster that just looks so silly to me. It was like this bloated guy with like
It's
eyes
like a
bulging
Jabba the
out.
Hutt kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, what the fuck is this? And they show him again later, and I get what they were trying to do, but it completely took me out of the movie. I was just like, this is just silly at this point. Like it completely like took any scares out, and then the movie just took a complete turn where just all these things started happening that didn't make any sense. Like, so like it wasn't even the pool; it's the groundwater from like a well, and like the pool uses well water? Like, is that even possible? Like, can you? I don't know about pools. I'm no pool guy, but like, can you even
Not if
do
it has a
that?
lining. It would have to have a
Yeah,
big
like, how do
hole
you
in
like have a
it.
drain that goes to a well that's? But then it's like you think like, okay, all right, the pool's haunted, but then so is there like shower and the toilet and
So any
dishwasher.
form of water. Yeah, it's like washing your hands. There could possibly be like some sort of like ghost that appears.
And
Uh
to spoil the movie, I'm sorry to cut you off, but to spoil the movie, I'm going to spoil the ending. And in the end, like, and you
no
could
one's watching it to the end anyway.
You could
So
predict, yeah, yeah. You could predict this is going to happen, right? But like they fill in the pool and decide to stay in the house after all this bad shit happens. And it's like, first of all, why would you stay in this house where bad shit happens? But second of all, like just filling in the pool doesn't change shit. It's the fucking water. Like, what was the point of that other than like they just were like, oh, we're going to end this movie now?
I mean, yeah, and I'm gonna give a little bit of background on this movie. So it was actually Bryce McGuire who directed it. It was actually his first feature film. So I don't know if we're being a little hard on him. He's done shorts up until now. So that kind of makes a lot of sense where we're both kind of agreeing that about halfway through this movie, it just falls to pieces. And it looks like he's like, oh shit, I need an ending. I got this cool idea. It's brilliant. It's haunted. People go nuts about it. But how do I make it make sense? And then he's like, I know, and he just tries to like piece together some nonsensical like plot to kind of I don't it doesn't really make sense. It went back 100 years. It's like five different families and everyone experienced the same thing. It was strange. I don't think it was a good connection, and it just wasn't really it wasn't scary to me, but maybe this film is not for like huge horror fans. I think maybe like some neutral person might like it. I think someone who just goes to the theater to maybe see a movie, maybe this would scare them. Maybe, just those jump scares that we may be a little bit immune to. Maybe it works. I mean, but it was contrived ending, predictable jump scares.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably for again for teens that are gonna watch it once and never watch again, and maybe they have a good time at the movies like with their friends. But yeah, and I think it would have made a good like 6 minute short. His short was probably great, but like I don't know. It's always interesting to me like when you see like a director like get a huge budget for like their first movie, and it's like I don't know. And I'm sure there was a lot of tinkering from like the studio because this was the J.J. Abrams company and Blumhouse, and I'm sure they were all like having their way. So I don't really give the director any fault. I think this movie was doomed from the start. But like a couple of things that like jumped out at me, they were just like ridiculous, like talking about the plot. Like, okay, so like the realtor doesn't mention that this house, like a girl drowned in the pool and all this bad shit happened. But then like they're at a party and it just happens to mention it at like the party. Like why would you bring that up? Like they're having a party. Like you're gonna bring up this like terrible thing that happened. Like what the hell?
I think she was getting a little lit on some white Chardonnay, and and people start gabbing, and I think that's why she kind of like let it slip out. That's kind of like what I felt. But it's like, also, would you go to that party? I don't know if I would.
Oh
It's like, man, I'm not going to that haunted pool party, man. You kidding me?
yeah, like I
It's
sold you
like,
this house. I'm never going in it. Like I know the shit that
yeah,
went down. Like why would I? She
yeah.
wanted that Chardonnay. It was probably free, and then maybe they had like a good cheese plate or something. I don't know. You know, it was also funny. Like so, a couple of things I thought were like funny was one, the dad is like videotaping himself lifting weights, which I'm like,
Yeah.
which was ridiculous. Like who does that? Like with this like shirtless kid like watching him do this like. And he wasn't like doing like exercises and he's like bench pressing. It's like, yeah, you're like an old man. And he's also using this like old ass camera, which comes up again later. Like, why would he not use his phone? It's just like who even has that kind of camera anymore?
So the timeline was very, very skewed. So this is my guess, and I could be completely wrong here. I think it was 2008.
Okay, then I
And
didn't actually miss that. I was
so
probably
yeah, so I think it was, and because the only reason I think that is because I just have a note here just about the coloring of the film, and I just felt it had a bit of a nostalgic feel, and just the way that people acted, dressed, it didn't feel like today. So I felt like it might have been a little bit in the past, but not like that far. So I don't know. The timeline was super, super confusing the way they jumped around, but
yeah, that makes more sense to me.
I think that initial kill was 99, I think.
And this was just a few years after that. Okay, that makes sense.
I
Now,
think so.
what really didn't make sense to me about this movie is they're at the pool party, and the dad is chicken fighting with like another kid on his shoulders.
That was creepy.
Who would fucking do that? Like, would you ever like here, give me this other kid? My son is over there, but I'm gonna like put this other kid on my first of all, chicken fighting in general is kind of like
That
a little
was
weird.
that
Um,
was cringe from the start, and
yeah, I was so uncomfortable by
and
that.
no matter when it took place, I don't think that's acceptable. It was
Yeah,
just
even in
too weird.
2008, we weren't doing that
Yeah,
shit,
it
you
was too
know?
weird. There was that beefy guy that was there too, like that the big bald guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was just uncomfortable to watch like these guys kind of like wrestling. It was I don't know. I don't like it was just an uncomfortable feeling. I think I
yeah,
might have
yeah.
left the room. Maybe I made some popcorn or got a
No,
drink or
I didn't
something.
move the
I
room.
was like, when is this gonna end? This weird cringy scene of these guys like I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't like it. That
Even
was
with
that
his
was a
own
fail
son, I
for
didn't
me.
really want to watch it. But like the fact that it was like someone else's kid, and then like some bad shit happens, and like they call the police, and it's like I don't know. That was just odd. Like, why would you even let? How would that? I don't even know how it happens, but like it did in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of girls at the party. Maybe they should have focused on that instead. I don't know. Maybe that would have been a better angle to, check out than what they went with.
I tell you what, though, as much as I didn't like this movie, there was like one oh shit moment that I rewinded where I was like, that was cool.
Mm.
And there's a scene towards the end where the daughter, I forget what happens, but she's running through the house and she falls on like a piece of glass with her hand.
Oh
And I was
yeah,
like,
that was
ooh,
brutal.
man, that was fucked up. And I was like, I gotta see that again because that was kind of cool.
That was brutal. Yeah, I mean, if that's the highlight though, a slip and fall. I mean, that's rough.
That was it. That was the only really good
that
about this movie.
was that's real rough. So I mean, it was a slip, you know.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, what would you, if like we used to do like a bloody knife scale where we would do 0 to 5 bloody knives and we would rate a movie. What would you give this one?
Okay, so I'm trying not to be too hard on it because I'm trying to look through it at a different lens. It's a modern film, some good acting. There are things I liked. The thing is, I'm never gonna watch it again. So because of that, I gotta give it a two.
Yeah, I was leaning the same thing. Like I was at first I was like generous, like 2.5, but like the movie just was too ridiculous. And there was just it was made no sense. It was got really boring. The effects weren't that great. And the movie looked beautiful for the most
It
part
was,
until
yeah.
you got to like some of this weird ghost CGI black goop stuff that they did. So yeah, I give it a two. Wasn't the worst movie. I wasn't like pissed off that I watched it. But I'm definitely never gonna watch again. I wouldn't recommend it. All right, cool. Well, that was Night Swim. And I don't know who's gonna watch it after that review, but if you do, whatever. So when we were trying to figure out what to talk about for this first episode, like I wanted to talk about like Eli Roth. And the reason why I wanted to do that was I had this like perception in my head that like I didn't like his films other than Cabin Fever. I was and like I just had this thing, and then we were talking, you and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I actually like that film too. And you know what? Like at first I was like, I hated Knock Knock, but then I was like, I actually really didn't hate Knock Knock. Like I think it falls apart in the last 30 minutes, but the movie's not bad. And so I wanted to kind of like take a look at some of his films, and Thanksgiving came out recently, and I had really low expectations for this just because I went in thinking like, oh, another Eli Roth movie, but I liked it for what it was. I mean, it wasn't like amazing, but I thought it was like a fun slasher. Like it definitely had like a point of view and a sense of humor, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. New slasher film, slick, fast, bloody. It's a commodity these days. I loved it.
Yeah, I thought what I really liked about the movie was I thought there were a few things. I thought one, like like, and we always talk about this too, like how I hate when humor's thrown into movies. Like I was saying how
Yeah.
in like Night Swim, like trying to throw in Marco Polo when the guy's trying to kill his daughter, like this didn't make sense. But in a movie like this, the humor like really worked, and it helped, and it was like tongue in cheek versus like trying too hard to be funny. And I mean, look, this movie was basically like it was a joke trailer that was in front of the Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez Grindhouse double feature. I think it was in the beginning, I forget. But it was if anyone hasn't seen the trailer is great. It has like a very 70s, 80s like feel. So the fact that they actually made a movie about this and did something completely different than that trailer was, like this is modern. This isn't 70s or 80s or even really exploitation. This is its own thing, which I thought was interesting. I would have loved to have seen like a straight gritty 80s grindhouse movie, but I get like, they got to make money, right? And like who would probably go see that? So, but I was surprised. I thought it was really good.
Totally. And again, it has nothing to do with the trail that he made, but he did in fact make the movie. And really, I mean, if we just want to like dive into it, I mean, the plot basically is Black Friday, event that goes wrong, and it just follows like life after that. And I know we were just talking about Night Swim, where it's like a new interesting concept that really never been done before. I don't think anyone has really ever made a film about this topic before. It's really focused on like Thanksgiving and Black Friday, which is strange. You don't really equate that to horror, but I think Eli Roth really captured it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and even that opening scene, and at first, like it took me a minute. Where's this movie going? Because that
Yeah.
happens like 10 minutes in, and you're just like that scene was over the top, awesome, completely great, and but funny and violent at the same time. But it's not far off from like how people
Yeah,
are.
I
Like
mean,
I it's in
I,
Walmart all the time, especially on Black Friday. And I don't think the stores are open anymore on Thanksgiving because of that.
that opening act that rivals Ghost Ship.
Oh, I know the scene you're talking about. I know.
People talk. I'm in all like those horror chat rooms and things like that. People always talking about the best opening act of a horror film, and that one is always it, hands down. I think there's something new out there that rivals it, because honestly, that just spirals out of control, and it's gory and bloody, and it goes a little bit further. didn't even want it to. You're like, oh, don't show me that. And it does. It's like, watch this. This is going to be disgusting. And I mean, some of those kills are gross and gory, but again, very realistic. It could happen. It could happen tomorrow.
All for a fucking waffle iron, right? Which
I
is really
need
funny.
one.
And there were only three deaths, I think, in that scene. But like you said, those three deaths were
Oh,
fucking brutal. Like that woman getting her scalp ripped off by the
scalp.
cart. I was like, oh,
Ooh,
that was
man.
gnarly, man. And like, so like they did a great job. But it's funny too, because it's super over the top violent, but it also was, I mean, kind of funny. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was really well done. And what was cool about this movie that I liked, there's this opening scene that's brutal and crazy. And then an hour into the movie when they had the parade scene, that's also like over the top and crazy and like even maybe even more violent than this opening scene. Like usually you throw all your, I'm gonna throw all my shit like right at the beginning, but like they save some stuff for towards the end, which I thought was a nice surprise.
So I'll definitely talk about that. So I don't know if you seen Death Wish before?
The Eli Roth version.
Yeah, yes.
So I have, and that was what we were talking about. I honestly do not remember that movie.
Okay.
I remember not
So
liking it, and I tried to find it to watch so we could have the conversation, but I couldn't find it anywhere, so I didn't get to rehash it.
so for me, Eli Roth was doing something really interesting in that film, and it definitely translates into Thanksgiving. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like I'm gonna call it like a chain reaction kill, which is not something that you see too much in horror films where it's usually just pretty obvious what's going to happen. But basically it's like one event happens, another event happens, and then from that someone gets killed. And it's so ridiculous because you're like, this can never happen. But he does it quite a few times in Death Wish, and he really kind of brought it home in that scene that you're talking about during that parade, where like someone trips over something, something falls, all of a sudden like a pole goes flying through and impales somebody. I mean, how is that possible? It is possible, I guess, but the way he puts it together, it's believable. And I thought he did a really, really good job at doing that in this film because it does add a little humor and it does make you go, oh shit, like quite a few times. And I actually haven't felt that in quite some time watching a movie because you're like, there's nothing really happening here. Like, oh shit, I can't believe guy got impaled by a pole. Like, I don't how that happen.
Yeah, speaking of the chain reaction, it was almost like a Final Destination kind of
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
but like, and it was interesting too. And I rewatched this movie twice. I need to rewatch it again. I don't think I feel like the pull through the head death wasn't even like a part of what the killer was doing. That was just something that just happened because like the chaos. Like he killed this one dude, then something else happened, and then all of a sudden, like everything went to shit and like people were just dying all over the place. And I thought that was really awesome and fun in a way that again it shouldn't be fun, but it was.
Well, we are watching a horror film, so
And
what we
look,
find
and again,
fun.
like, yeah, I think he did a really good job with that. I think what I also like too, while the kills, some of them were really cartoonish, if not all of them, I liked how they were more than just one thing happening. Like that woman, I think it was the first kill, he like wets the woman's face and then sticks her to like a freezer door, and then
Yeah.
she has to
Ooh.
peel her face off, and then like he's chasing, and then like it was all like multiple things happening that like you think the first part's brutal, and then it gets even more brutal. Like something even worse happens, and it's like, oh, you thought you got away, but no, you didn't.
I mean, doesn't she end up getting sliced in half by a dumpster?
She does. She does, which again was ridiculous.
Never saw that happen
No, I
before.
never saw
It's
that.
like, oh my God, a dumpster is a weapon. Very unique. And I definitely want to talk about the killer, John Carver. I mean, to me, it's brand new killer, pretty original, looked different, acted different than most killers you see like in a slasher film. Definitely had a little bit of that scream vibe to it, but you really, little more interesting, I think. He dressed up, he looked cool. I mean, I don't know. I liked him a lot.
It was creepy, and the first time I watched, I missed where they explained who John Carver was. So like wasn't paying attention. I think I was drinking, or no, I was not drinking. No, I didn't. Yeah, I was drinking, and I missed, like, I didn't get it. And then this time I watched it again. And it was like, okay, he's the founder of the town. That makes sense. They're all like celebrating. So it's like who anyone could have this mask, which I thought was like an interesting way, especially when it was
Interesting.
you didn't know who the killer was, and there were lots of red herrings as to who the killer would be. And I was definitely surprised. I'm not gonna say like we'll spoil shit, but I don't need to say who the killer was here, but I wasn't expecting that person to be the killer. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing I really liked was the corn on the cob in the ears. Like
Oh
the
my.
sounds like were just oh like and that was another thing I never seen before and thought that was really cool. I also liked so in the trailer, the original trailer, like there is the trampoline scene, which I'm glad
Oh
they
yeah,
brought that
yeah, yep.
back. However, like I think and that was brutal. The trampoline scene in the movie is brutal. In the
I liked
trailer
it
though,
though.
like first of all, she gets topless in the trailer. Just
Yeah.
second of all, she gets that knife through her pussy, which is like
Oh.
it's fucking graphic as fuck.
Woo.
I get why they didn't do that here, and but they didn't do that, but I think it was still brutal enough that like I felt it. I was like, that's painful, like what happened to her. So. I thought that was cool that they kind of included that because I remember when I saw that trailer, I went to the double feature to see Grindhouse, and I sat for 4 or 5 hours to watch that. And that I saw that and I was like, oh my God, this is brutal, like the trampoline scene. So I was glad they kind of did like a throwback to that.
Yeah, it was, I mean, little nonsensical because she is the one that ends up in the refrigerator later on. I mean, what do you think that is? 3 days later, 2 days later, those horrific wounds that she received from on the trampoline, and now she's just chilling in a plastic bag, marinating, uh for a few days. Little unrealistic, but I mean, I guess you gotta, suspend belief a little bit to get into it. But
Yeah,
I
I
thought
mean the
they could.
movie's
I thought that,
Thanksgiving,
yeah, I,
right?
I thought he could have put it together just like maybe not show so much what happened to her on the trampoline, so you could be like, all right, maybe she wasn't hurt that bad or something like that. But there's absolutely zero chance anyone lived for 5 seconds after that trampoline. There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, but again, this movie is like super over the top. Again, it's social commentary, it's satire. For me though, and all these kills which were brutal, like my favorite was the circular saw one
Mm.
because it was interesting too because I remember starting the movie and I remember thinking that for whatever reason some of the blood just seems CGI to me. Like I don't know if it's the coloring of it, like early on in the movie, but then as the movie goes on, like they're definitely using real blood. There's blood spraying everywhere. So I was like, was it just me? Like, did I just see something different, or maybe that was like some CGI? But like they definitely ratchet up the blood towards the end of the movie. But the most brutal kill was that woman getting burned alive, like in the oven. That was just gnarly to me. Like I
Oh,
had a hard time with that.
yeah,
Um,
never. Oof, serving that up for dinner. That's brutal. I,
Yeah, the whole movie was fucked up and sick, and like I think it did really well. So I hope they do more. I think I think the only real thing I was kind of like okay about was in the very end, like the cops chasing, or I'm sorry, the guys chasing the woman with the axe, and like
mhm.
he had a gun, like he could have used the gun, but like whatever.
I do have a lot of problems with the ending. I guess we're spoiling it. I mean, we gave away all the good kills and stuff like
Oops.
that. But like seriously, why did that turkey explode?
Oh, I think she turned on like a
What?
gas or something.
Helium, and she shot it with her necklace.
Yeah,
How is that even possible? It would have made a hole, but there was nothing to cause an explosion. I mean, I did watch it twice just to make sure I was capturing the scene correctly. I just didn't see why that happened. So that was a little silly, I think. But
Did they explain why she has the bracelet with the knife on it? Because I missed that. I was like, where did that come from? Like, did they show that early on? I wasn't paying attention.
yeah, I think so. Was it the gift from her mother, I believe?
Oh, maybe I just because
I
that first
think,
10 minutes I was kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
paying
I
attention.
think I think that's what it was from. Again, they could just let her use the gun, and I would have believed that that could have caused an explosion, but a silver necklace, I don't know, man. you know
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
look,
it inflated,
Thanksgiving.
it's helium, it's I don't it
Yeah,
was
I mean, but again, I can't complain too much about this
no,
movie.
no, no, no.
Even like the teens in the movie, like, again, the writing is kind of like Eli Roth's writing. So it's like he has this frat boy like mentality throughout his movies. So that's very kind of that's how his characters kind of talk.
I will give him credit. Again, he did not go the direction that he could. Very, very, very young cast, mostly unknowns. You know,
Yeah, and
it
it's
was
not a
good.
safe movie. It's not something that like again, it's not Scream like
Hmm.
where there's a very specific audience for this movie. This movie, he made a movie for horror fans, and I think going back through like Eli Roth's catalog, and you could say whatever you want about like his movies are good, bad, you don't like him, you don't like him. He's a horror fan. And it's very clear, just kind of pivoting. Like, let's talk about like Cabin Fever, which was his first film,
Yeah,
which I think was 2002. And
2002.
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I think you and I went on a double date to see this movie, if I remember right.
We did.
Um, yeah, we did. What a great double date,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Taking our
just,
ladies to see Cabin Fever.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know how that worked out for you, but
Not well.
I didn't get a second date after that.
Yeah, it didn't work out for
So,
me, but
I guess I didn't know what it was called back in 2002, but today it'd be called ghosting. And that's exactly what happened when you take someone to Cabin Fever for a first date. It just didn't
yeah,
work out.
I'm not with that person anymore, so it didn't work out. But I remember when we saw that movie, I don't think we had like hot like expectations. We were just
Do you
like,
know
let's
who
see it.
Eli Roth was? Who was
Yeah,
he? Yeah.
and man, that movie like we were like really shocked and blown away by how different and good it was because up until then I'm not a huge fan of 90s horror in general. I feel like and there are good movies obviously that I like in the 90s, but a lot of it was just very like contrived and not a lot going on, and this was like a brand new voice, which is why I think the film did really well. It was at the time I researched this, it was like Lionsgate's like most profitable movie, which is why like really launched his career. And it's a very different movie, and I watched it again recently and it does hold up. Like there are definitely some problematic things about it where you're like, ooh, that's really cringy. And I'll get to those in a minute. But like
Yeah.
the movie holds up. It's interesting. And like even though I've seen it before, like you don't know where it's going. And I really like that. And it was something that we just hadn't seen before and really haven't seen since, like a movie like that that was kind of all over the place. And getting back to him as a horror fan, there's a lot of just nods to other horror movies. Like he uses songs from Last House on the Left. There's like the ass shot from Texas Chainsaw, the girl going up the
Absolutely.
hills. You could tell this guy liked horror movies and wanted to kind of show all of his influences, which I really respect. And I love when you see people like throw back to things that like you remember and are like, oh, that's cool. Like he likes that too. I really dug that and respected that.
Yeah, definitely for someone who was oops shit, who was unknown at the time. Had a few drinks, guys. Banging into shit. For someone who was unknown at the time, just to see him give like those nods to like where his inspiration came from, totally something that we could relate to and that we really respected as watching, a brand new director. I do want to give some information about this movie. I do have a fun fact. So
Ooh.
it turns out that Eli Roth got the idea when he took a trip to Iceland and got a pretty severe skin infection. So that's really what inspired him to write this film, which I had no idea because in 2002 I probably didn't Google it. It was still fairly, a new kind of thing, and he always didn't Google everything when you didn't know it. So either read it on the back of the DVD if and that's a disc, people who may not know like what that is, but it's a disc you'd put in a machine, and that's where you got most of your information from about the film. But I thought that was really interesting to kind of turn that into something. And really, I mean, this film, I mean, I love to talk about like genres. I mean, that's really where my interest in horror movies come from. I love just analyzing genres and where they fall, like on the scale and where they fit. I mean, this is kind of like a precursor to like a pandemic horror, which in 2002, I don't even know if we knew. I mean, I'm sure people knew what the word pandemic mean, but it's not something that was used in, society and was not like common knowledge. So I thought it was a bit of a precursor to that and almost like a visionary, the way he envisioned a pandemic happening is kind of was pretty close.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because when I rewatched it, like what I found was really interesting. And like I think at the time, like he was probably thinking about movies like The Thing and stuff like that. But it's really interesting how the people really turn on each other once they're exposed to this whatever it was, this disease, which is exactly what happened with COVID, where we all like, if you were unvaxxed or vaxxed or blah blah blah, and everybody was so scared and isolated from each other, and like that's exactly what happened here.
Exactly.
And what would happen? You throw five people who are like kind of friends, like they're friends, but like you clearly like a weird group of people, and you throw this thing at them, and that's what's going to happen. They're going to break down and hate each other and fight each other, and it was very realistic and exactly what happened in our time. So yeah, the movie's very relevant now. And what one thing that makes me like really like appreciate, I guess, Eli Roth as a filmmaker, and again, I have definitely mixed feelings about a lot of his other films, but especially with this one, is I don't know, have you seen the remake that they did of Cabin Fever?
I think I did, but
Yeah, I watched them back to back, and literally the remake is like the exact script shot through a different director. And I read what happened, and basically some director went up to Eli Roth and was like, "I want to remake your script and do it my way." And he's like, "Sure, whatever. I want to see what happens." And if you put the movies side by side, and like it has the same jokes, the same like dialogue, pretty much everything's the same except for like some minor changes. And there's a huge difference between the two. Like the jokes do not land in the remake. The characters you hate even more in the remake just because like they're just boring and just I don't know. It doesn't have a style. It looks like a more expensive Cabin Fever, but it doesn't have like any style or substance. And it's like it's interesting when you give two people the same script, like what happens. One makes this like artistic, different kind of genre changing movie, and the other one is just like, why am I even watching this? It's so boring.
I mean,
So
it
it's interesting.
happens every time, right? I mean, we talk about, martyrs early, things like that. It's like somehow there's always something off about it where they try to make it better. Is it ever? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, and we'll probably do like a episode on remakes because there are some that I do like more. Like I think the Evil Dead remake is a million times better than the original. I know people are going to hate on
I
that,
feel
but
that's a
like
revision, but like,
I guess it's
yeah,
how you
yeah,
define it, right? Like it's I guess it's a completely different movie, I guess. But yeah, this Cabin Fever is legit a remake. It's the same movie, just done through different eyes, and it's definitely different. But like, and one thing that they did change in the remake, which I'm glad they did, like talking about like the problematic things, like the one thing that really sticks out on me is like basically Ryder Strong sexually assaults the Jordan Ladd character,
yeah,
and the way it's done, like it's interesting because she's supposed to, and I don't know like the intent of Eli Roth when doing this scene, because like there is something that comes up later on where maybe he's not a great guy and they're trying to show that, but like it almost seems like that scene is somewhat like glorified. It's really uncomfortable, and he doesn't seem like he's the bad guy, even though he's basically like assaulting this woman and who he supposedly is in love with. And I'm just not sure how to feel about that. And I would love to like hear like Eli Roth's perspective on that. Again, it was also made at a different time where,
yeah. I
it
think
is frat
going
boy-ish.
back,
Like
yeah, going
it's
back to
definitely like,
2002. I mean, you feel like Eli Roth needed to like have this character shoot a shot and fail and end up disgusting and gory. And I think he envisioned it that way and probably completely didn't even consider it being viewed another way. But yeah, definitely when you look at it in 2024, it's like, wow, like, this guy should maybe be in jail if he makes it
yeah,
out alive here because
yeah. And you're
like,
sympathizing. You're like, oh, the poor
like,
guy that like he's looking for
yeah,
this like girl who's not interested. And then
yeah,
it's like, oh, this guy's a rapist. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
So, I mean, there was a lot of things like language and
Yeah, there's a lot of
other,
anti-gay stuff, which
yeah,
comes up in
there's
Hostel a lot
yeah,
too.
there's a lot of things in that movie that probably wouldn't sit well with today's audience. Definitely problematic, but I try not to view it that way. I definitely pretended I was in 2002 on that date.
Yeah, because I don't, again, I can't say how I felt at the time. I don't remember, and I've drank a lot since then. But yeah, it's tough to watch some stuff like that today. But again, I think the main thing I really like about the movie is that you really don't know where it's going. Like there's a lot of shocks and surprises and just weird random shit that you're just like, okay, like a new character just comes in and you're like, the movie's completely different now.
I mean, I want to talk about a character. I mean, there's this character here that should have got a lot more play in that movie, and that's Deputy Winston.
Yes, the hero,
That
who's
guy was
also a
the
bit rapey
best.
too. He's
he,
also like a bit problematic.
he is, but I mean, he
The
was.
party
I
man.
mean, like he just showed up, and like the whole movie just like changed like vibes, and you're like, man, this guy is great. I want to hang out with this guy. He was like,
He
like
needs his
so.
own movie.
He did. I mean, I thought he was hysterical. Just wanted to party. I mean, he was funny. I don't know if you remember any quotes him there, but when the guy shows up, he says, "Why don't you have yourself a big 40 ounce?" And I
I
was
do
like,
remember that. I was like, I will.
I'm like, I relate. I relate to this guy, man. Like, where's he been? Like my whole life. Like, is he coming over? Is he hanging out? Does he drink bourbon? What does he do? I thought he
It's
was
40s and
hysterical.
parties. He's the party
Yeah.
man.
And then
And
he
I was reading,
got
doing research on this, and originally Eli Roth was going to play that role. And but this guy auditioned and was so good. And thank God, because this guy made the movie. And like Eli Roth is in the movie in a different role, and it's cringy. Like, his part would have been cringy if anybody played that part because it's just like a douchey kind of guy. But he's Eli Roth's so bad. It amazes me like when Eli Roth gets cast in things, even now. Like he was in The Idol recently, and just like watching him on screen,
he's creepy.
he's not a good actor
Yeah,
at
he's
all.
he's he's a creepy guy. His acting technique is being creepy. It's just
Yeah, he does
weird.
that well. Yeah, he gets creepy and cringy, but
It's
I'm glad that he played the role that he played, which was very quick in the movie and not like
not
Winston.
not Winston, because honestly, everything that this character did, whether it's intentional or not, had some sort of comedy added to it. And again, was it a comedy? I don't think it was, but it just came off that way. It was a good break in the tone of the film that is very heavy at times. And to see this character come in, he's like, you're like, all right, there's a cop here. All right, he's a deputy. He's law and order, and all of a sudden he gets on a bicycle and pedals away. It
Oh my
was
God,
like
I remember that.
like the dude's on a bike, man. It's like they didn't give him a they
That's your
didn't give him a
cop. That's your
car. They didn't give him a
deputy.
car, nothing. Like he's just
I
like, yeah,
forgot about that. Oh my
yeah,
God,
he just pedals
that
away.
cracked me up for
I'm like,
sure.
like, why it's hysterical, and you can't help but laugh, even though that these people literally had like the worst night of their lives, and you're like, this is hysterical that the guy checking in on them is driving away on a bike. So
He's
I thought
gonna
he was
save the
great. He
day.
should have had more airtime. Very disappointed. They should have did something with him, some sort of follow up, some sort of sequel, something with
Yeah, he
him.
needed his own film for sure, or should have been brought back in other Eli Roth movies. Like, and but yeah, I think again, it's what we were saying earlier. Or I was saying earlier, it's tough to like mix humor and horror, and I think he did a great job with Thanksgiving, a great job with Cabin Fever. I think Hostel also does like a really good job of
Mm.
throwing in some humor where things are just so over the top that like you uncomfortably laugh at some things. And that movie, I'm a fan of that movie also.
I'm
Hostel
glad
2 is like
I'm glad you
okay.
said that. So I'm gonna hit you with something that you don't know anything about right
Oh,
now,
do it.
and I'm gonna catch you off guard, and I'm gonna do a lightning
I had
challenge.
3 drinks to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a lightning challenge with you, and what it is I'm gonna name an Eli Roth movie, and you have to instantly say thumbs up or thumbs down without really thinking about it too much. Are you ready?
Can I give reasoning or
You could give reasoning at the end.
okay? Okay,
How's that
go
sound?
for it. I love it.
All right, Cabin Fever,
Thumbs up.
Hostel,
Thumbs up.
Hostel 2,
Thumbs up.
Green Inferno,
Thumbs down.
Knock Knock,
Thumbs down.
Death Wish.
Don't remember it, but the one time I did watch it, thumbs down.
Wow. Thanksgiving.
Thumbs up.
All right. Those are pretty interesting there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give the reason behind those. So like Green Inferno, I don't like that kind of movie in general. It's just not my thing. I appreciate what he was trying to do. That movie killed it for me because again, it starts off really good and it completely to me falls apart towards the end. There's a lot of really bad CGI in it that just like really took me out of
Mm.
it. The movie's like horrific. And
It's
then
a
you
it's a
have like
cannibal
these,
Holocaust kind of
yeah,
reimagining, I would say, but not as good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I give him credit like for making a movie like that. I'm assuming he was a fan of those movies, and I'm not personally. A lot of them have like
no
violence to animals I don't want to see, but like
cannibals,
I
another
didn't really
thing.
care for that movie, and I've watched it. I saw it in the theater, I remember, and then I
Ugh.
rewatched it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. There's like CGI ants that just killed me. There's a few things about it I didn't like. Knock Knock, I think starts off great. I think the first like 45 minutes is really
Dark
good and
and stormy
suspenseful.
night. It's starting the right
Yeah,
way for
and then
me.
you could
So
tell
has
like he just didn't know what to do. Like it just the last 40 minutes are just so boring to me. It just kind of like it just kind of dragged on where I was like, okay, this needs to just wrap up.
I mean, I just
Tom,
felt like in Knock Knock, like I could relate to Keanu Reeves. You got this
oh yeah,
like
happens
really,
to me all the time.
really good looking guy, middle aged, sitting in his home on a rainy night. Couple women knock on his door, want to come in. I mean, listen to some records. I mean, that's me. I feel like so. I feel like they kind of loosely made that for my life, but I don't know. I don't know Eli Roth personally, but maybe.
I think the difference though between me and the Keanu Reeves character in that movie is I would have been like fucking much earlier than he was.
Yeah,
He
not
needed a lot of
45 minutes
persuading.
into like, yeah, not 45 minutes into the movie, man. It's like,
Yeah, he needed a lot of persuading, and I
yeah.
probably would have been like, I love my wife, but like, you know,
Listen, let me
what am
text
I gonna
her.
do?
Let me
You
text
know?
her right now. Let her know what's going on. She'd be like, "Why are you talking to me? Get in there." You know.
Yeah, exactly. I would have like called my lawyer and like divorce papers drafted, and then be like, I gotta go do a thing.
um,
So like that's the only difference. But
I
like, yeah, I get it. Like he had no
hated it.
choice as the man saying that. But like,
Getting into Knock Knock though, I hated it. I thought it was like really long and boring, and
yeah,
really nothing
absolutely.
happens. And then really the reasoning behind everything, it didn't click for me. It was thin, and as much as I love Keanu Reeves, he's not a great actor, and he couldn't really pull off that type of character that was supposed to be like super sensitive and a great husband, and
Yeah,
temptation
he's
doesn't
stiff.
really
He's
affect
he's
him.
pretty
He's
stiff.
stiff. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He was a little stiff in that movie. So then like when it kind of like culminates like in this big ending, it didn't pan out for me. So
Yeah, even the scenes where he's with his wife in the very beginning, and like you clearly get that he's a guy that his wife won't fuck him anymore, and that's why he's this way. But like it didn't even seem like they fit together like at all. Like there was like a lot of dialogue, like with inside jokes and just shit they were doing, but it just felt like very like, do you even know each other? Like, but I guess that's what happens. Like I get the fact that they're both really busy and like all over the place, and she's an artist and he's an artist, and like so I kind of get it, but yeah, it didn't seem like there was any chemistry. So it wasn't even like you were rooting like you kind of like were like go ahead fuck these two girls like so what like I mean you have kids and stuff like that so obviously you don't want to ruin your family but it didn't seem like they were all really connecting anyway at least in my opinion but yeah the movie just kind of falls flat like it just kind of it was a cool idea I think and then all of a sudden like once they got to the part where they were doing this like fake game show I just lost okay let's just do whatever you're gonna do just do it didn't make any sense to me.
yeah, really falls apart at the end and really doesn't make for a great watch. And again, it's a film that I probably watch like two or three times because I always think it's gonna like catch my mood, but it never does. Not for me.
And I gave Hostel 2 the thumbs up, and I'll explain why. Like, because it's an interesting film, and it's nowhere near as good as Hostel 1, but I do still like it.
I think knowing what was going to happen, it kind of loses like that. I guess the mystique that the original one had, because you're like, what's happening here? Where's this going? And then the second one, you already kind of knew. So little different. Plus, it's different kind of like vision of it. It's like the female kind of version of it. So it was okay. I didn't like it. I have to say I probably watched Hostel 100 times in my life. I think I watched Hostel 2 twice.
Yeah, I'll watch it if it's like I'm looking for something different to watch. I think what I like about it, and again, I don't love the movie, but I like it. And I think what I like about it is like he took his concept for Hostel and did something different with it, right? Because you brought in like more of the world and like it shows kind of like the other side more as to like how like what the killers like had to do and stuff like that. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. I think again the movie's not as good, right? It's not as even though it does get intense, it's not the same movie, but I do like because I think you always think about and like, I'm a filmmaker and I think of like what would I do as a sequel to a movie. It's hard thinking of an idea for a sequel because you want to do something that's true to the original, but you also want to do something
Different.
different. And I think he did something different that's still true to the original. It's not as good, at least in my opinion. It's not as entertaining, but it's still like I respect like what he tried to do, and I do like the movie. And like when it's on, I'm not pissed off that I'm watching it. It's not something I normally would go to watch, but I do enjoy the movie. And I think
Yeah.
it's also great too getting that female perspective because his movies do tend to skew frat boy and very very male world, and this has a strong female character, which is not something I know you see a lot of final girls, but this was a little different, and I like the kind of twist on the final girl that they did here.
Yeah, definitely an interesting take. You know what? I think you convinced me, and I'm gonna give it another go. I'm gonna try it one more time.
I know he had nothing to do with the third one. I've only seen the third one once. I don't remember enjoying it. I didn't hate it, but I also wasn't like, this is a good movie. I never watched it again,
Yeah,
so
I,
I
I
don't.
think at that point, like the plot is just like so overdone. You're just like, yeah, I get it. I don't really care what happens to these people. It's like whatever.
Yeah, and I think that one took place in Vegas, and it was like part of like this almost like I forget like the plot of it, but like it was people watching and bidding on various things. It was definitely a very different movie.
Mm,
But there was something about it that it just felt it didn't have again personality, which again like I go back to I was been hating on Eli Roth for a while, but he does have a style and his movies do have a personality. Whether you like it or not, he definitely has his own point of view, and it's definitely something different that you don't see in a lot of horror movies that are just this happens and this happens and that happens. He is creating something that's a little different. And I respect anybody who's doing something different.
I mean, he's sarcastic and gory. How do you put that into a film? He does. Who knows? But yeah, really clever. I would say I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Eli Roth.
Yeah, and again, he does not skimp on the gore. Like
Nope.
there's Fever is some of it is fucking disgusting.
Ugh.
Like the scene where she's shaving her legs is
Ugh.
and I was reading something about, and I might have this wrong, but I believe she was supposed to use some kind of like prosthetic device, and they didn't have it. A lot of things got really fucked up on this film, which is what happens on a lot of low budget films. Apparently, one of the actors kept getting his eye injured, so they had to shoot like most of the movie at night, where they're supposed to shoot it during the day because he had eye problems. And like certain things got like pushed around because of just injuries and stuff like that. And I think she was supposed to use some kind of prosthetic, but like they didn't have it, so they had to like put the makeup like right on her leg, and it's very effective. It's gross. But that scene in general, like they did a really good job with.
Yeah, a lot. It definitely touches like what I would say that gross button, that body horror kind of uh nerve that either works or doesn't work. If when it works, it's gross, and it's like I've seen a million horror movies, seen a million kills, and like when you watch it with like the kind of like the one hand over your eye a little bit, like, oh no, stop it! What are you doing, man? I mean that's a great feeling, especially. I mean, I just did it last week watching this 2002 film. It got me. I'm like, oh, that's too much. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
gross.
it
He
takes a
does it
lot
a lot.
out of all the shit that we've seen to like actually be like, ooh, that's uncomfortable, and he definitely does that in Cabin Fever, and I think Hostel too, and Thanksgiving. Like, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to like, and especially when it's very like cartoony in a way, or like overly gory, like to have it still be effective, I think is a skill. And one thing too, like he, at least in the early movies, and I guess in Thanksgiving a little bit, like doesn't shy away from the TNA. Like he goes back
Uh,
to like that. And just a really interesting, I think it's a funny fact that I found when I was researching this movie to talk about it. So the actress, not Jordan Ladd, not the blonde, the other one, she's in the movie. She's in topless a lot of this
yeah,
movie,
yeah.
and she had just done a movie, not another teen movie, where she's fully naked, like the whole movie. Her role is basically naked girl, and she didn't want to show her butt in the movie. And Eli wanted her to show her butt, I think, in like one of the sex scenes. I think the one with Ryder Strong. And they apparently fought about this, which I get. And the compromise they came up with was she would show 1 inch of like her butt So what they did was, and this could be Eli being pervy. I don't know. This is just what I read on IMDb. Who knows how true this is? But apparently they measured with a ruler 1 inch and then taped the sheet right at that spot, so she would only show 1 inch of her butt when they shot it. But then she decided there was a scene where she was supposed to have a robe on, and she's like, "I'll be topless in this scene instead." So it was a whole thing. But just picturing, and like I know being on sets, like, and I understand this kind of thing, like actually going with a ruler and measuring, like,
Yeah.
just to like you could show 1 inch. It's just a funny compromise. Like, I want to see your whole ass. You're gonna see none of it. How about 3 inches? No, I'll show 1 inch. I thought that was like a really kind of interesting like fact about the movie.
I mean that first kind of like sex scene that she was in, that was a little kinky, I think, you know. I
Was
mean,
she put like her thumb in his ass or something
yeah,
like
I mean,
that? I'd
like,
seen
you
before the
know,
movie, so I was like, okay, cool,
like,
I'm in.
like what a way,
And they took, I
what a
think they took
way.
that out of the remake. I think in the remake he does not get a thumb in the butt.
See
I'm almost
that?
positive.
See, and that's the problem, you know.
They fuck, but I don't think it goes that
Right?
far. But it was also comedic the way they did it too, and I don't know. I appreciate it more than I thought I did on the rewatch. So look, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I
I've
definitely.
been swayed. I was anti Eli Roth, and again, not a fan of everything, but the ones I am a fan of, and I think, look, I think it's tough to have like multiple movies that are good. It's a lot of people have one movie it's good and then they completely fall off. Like the studio system gets them, and he had like the studio system. I mean, Quentin Tarantino produced fucking Hostel. There was a lot of, he made a huge profit on Cabin Fever, a lot of pressure to like keep doing it, and you get caught up in the system, and the fact that he was able to churn out and then come back after years of, I guess, not doing a horror movie, come back and do Thanksgiving, and it be successful. I give it credit. Like the horror community needs stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely giving Eli Roth props. And if anyone after tonight decides to continue to keep listening to this podcast, like, I'm a fucking hater, you know. There's a
Yeah, I
90,
hate
yeah,
everything.
there's a 98% chance I'm not gonna like your director. I'm not gonna like your film. I'm gonna have 100 negative things to say about it. And that was my exact intention for tonight. But after reviewing everything, he holds up. I was completely impressed with Thanksgiving, and I thought maybe I was just excited for like a new slick horror violent film to come out. So I didn't know what was going to happen when I reviewed some of his older stuff, but I like him. You know, he doesn't get an A+, but he definitely gets a solid B-. So I'm a fan, and I'll definitely keep following like whatever he does. I'm in for it.
So to close out, let's figure out the bloody knives for, let's do Cabin Fever
Mm,
first. So 0 to 5.
0 to 5. Give it a 4.
I would agree with that. I think when we originally reviewed the movie for Horror Heads years ago, I believe we probably gave it a 5. And I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that was because, again, it was so new and
Different.
so fresh. And now watching it, it's a little difficult. I don't think it's a 5 bloody knife movie. I do think it's a 4. I don't think there's anything that could have made it a 5, but like it's definitely a 4. So I would agree with you there. How about Thanksgiving?
Okay, so I gotta take the movie for what it is. I know I went on all night tonight about how much I liked it, but it's limited. So I'll give it a 3, maybe a 3.5. But let me add something to it. I will absolutely keep watching this movie. Just because I gave it a 3 doesn't mean I think it sucks, doesn't mean anything about it. It's just not the greatest movie ever made, but it's very entertaining, and I'll keep watching.
Yeah, I would say I'm going to give it a 3.5. And I think, again, I'm not a huge fan of slasher movies in general overall. Like they're like it's a genre I used to love a lot more than I do now. Just 'cause I think I've seen too many of them. But I do love the creativity in the kills. I love those two set piece scenes that we talked about, the opening scene and that parade scene. I think to make it like a 4-star movie, I think it needed more. I think there are a few characters that got away that probably shouldn't have. I think it kind of all comes together too neatly in the end, where again, I was kind of left like a little, like I wanted a little something more, I think. And I think it needed that. It's over the top and there's like some great moments in it, but I think it just needed that one more thing for me to be like, this is a 4-star movie, a 4 bloody night movie versus a 3.5. I'll give it a 3.5 though, because I was pleasantly surprised, and I liked it a lot more than I would. And for a modern slasher to be like that interesting to me is a lot. And so I'm gonna give it that.
I definitely
Yeah.
agree. Now that you're saying that, it definitely has me thinking. Yeah, it has a little bit of that happy ending horror at the end, which I'm not a fan of. You know, if you're going to go through an hour and a half of like this brutality and then just kind of wrap it up in a neat little bow and make everyone happy when they're walking out of the theater, that's not really me. That's not really what I think horror is. I'm a huge slasher fan. That is one of my top genres. And that's probably why I'm bumping this up a little bit more, just because I'm excited that there's a new one out there and it's real and it feels like a good movie for horror fans. They didn't water it down too much, but yeah, thinking about it now, the ending is a little bit of a happy ending, and didn't need to be that way, you know. And ended on a bad note, you know, like Halloween, ended like Friday 13th. You know, it's like, man, that was fucked up. You know, that's what I want. That's what I want to say. Like when I get out, you know, I want to be like, Jesus, what did I just see?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. All right, cool. All right, well, thanks everybody for hanging with us. Hope you're as drunk as we are right now. I'm going to finish this drink, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. Probably watch some movies.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheers you one more time, and then we'll get out of this place here. So this was a lot of fun. Hope you all tune in next time, and cheers to you, Rich, and to the next time.
All right, see ya.